Hi guys, I'm going to be reporting about the 1973 Martial Law Constitution. So this report is going to have two parts, wherein we have the 1973 Philippine Constitution, the original, and its martial law implementation. So for the first part, we have the 1973 Constitution, the original one. So the Republic Act number 6132, which is also known as the Constitutional Convention Act of 1971, sanctioned the election of 320 delegates to the Constitutional Convention on November 10, 1970, and this was held in an inaugural session at the Fiesta Pavilion of the Manila Hotel on June 1, 1971, wherein they had President Marcos, Chief Justice Roberto Concepcion, Senate President Gil Puyat, and House Speaker Cornelio T. Villarreal. This led to the 1973 Constitution being implemented. Here are the known members of the Constitutional Convention: Richard Gordon, Antonio de las Alas, Juan Liwag, Carlos Garcia, who was elected as the president of the convention. However, he died of the heart attack on June 14, 1971. Sotero H. Laurel, who took over the president of the convention until the new president was elected, and Diosdado Macapagal, who was elected as the president of the convention on June 29, 1971, and served until the convention was adjourned. So the 1973 Constitution, composed of a preamble and 17 articles, provided the shift from presidential to parliamentary system of government. The legislative power is vested in the National Assembly. A prime minister is elected from among the members of the National Assembly and serves as the head of government and commander-in-chief of the Philippine Armed Forces. A president is elected from among the members of the National Assembly and serves as the symbolic head of state with a 6-year term. The judicial power is vested in the Supreme Court, which is comprised of a Chief Justice and 14 justices. The National Assembly exercises power to define, prescribe, and apportion the jurisdiction to the lower courts. The justices of all courts are appointed by the Prime Minister. So this basically made the martial law easier to implement. So here we have the martial law, also known as the Implementation 1081. This was signed by President Ferdinand Marcos on September 21, 1972. September 21 was also made National Thanksgiving Day to memorialize the date. At first, it was well received, but it became unpopular amongst the masses because of human rights abuses by the military, along with the decadence of the Marcoses. This caused the Philippines' economic downfall. This period was from 1972 to 1981 until the People Power Revolution. So this barred from running for a third term as president in 1973. Marcos announced Proclamation number 1081 on September 23, 1972, declaring martial law with rising civil disobedience as a justification. So what happened during this martial law? Curfews were implemented to ensure safety. A lot of television and radio stations were suspended. Journalists who spoke against the government were imprisoned. They were also tortured and abused. The Marcoses then allegedly took advantage of the regime by stealing billions of pesos worth of property. Around 70,000 people were imprisoned and 34,000 were tortured, according to the Amnesty International. 3,200 were killed from 1972 to 1981. Known political opposi- oppositionist Benigno Ninoy Aquino was assassinated on August 21, 1983, which caused outrage. In February 7, 1986, a snap election was held. Marcos and his partner Tolentino won via widespread election fraud. So under martial law, the regime was able to reduce violent urban crime, collect unregistered firearms, and suppress communist insurgency in some areas. At the same time, a series of important new concessions were given to foreign investors, including a prohibition on strikes by organized labor, and a land reform program was launched. In January 1973, Marcos proclaimed the ratification of a new constitution based on the parliamentary system, with himself as both president and prime minister. He did not, however, convene the interim legislature that was called for in that document. So this also caused the People Power Revolution. The People Power Revolution, also known as the EDSA Revolution or the February Revolution, was a series of popular demonstrations in the Philippines, mostly in Metro Manila. From February 22 to 25, 1986, there was a sustained campaign of civil resistance against regime violence and, and electoral fraud. The nonviolent revolution led to the departure of Ferdinand Marcos, the end of his 20-year presidential term, and the restoration of democracy in the Philippines. It is also referred to as the Yellow Revolution due to the presence of yellow ribbons during demonstrations. It was in reference to Tony Orlando and Don Song tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree, following the assassination of Filipino Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. in August 1983 upon his return to the Philippines from exile. It was widely seen as a victory of the people against 2 decades of presidential rule by President Marcos and made news headlines as the revolution that surprised the world. The People Power Revolution occurred from February 22 to 25, 1986 in Metro Manila, a series of sustained and popular civil resistances against the armies. This forced Marcoses to flee to Hawaii, and Corazon Aquino was made president along with her vice president Salvador Laurel. So to summarize it, the people power has inspired a call for a change of government through peaceful protest rather than bloodshed. Many similar revolutions have followed since then, taking the Philippine example of the non-violent regime. In a historian's perspective, we would want to learn this no matter what side you're on. It is not right to abuse human rights and wrongfully stripping away their properties and turning them into your assets. We also learned to fight for ourselves in a way wherein we considered our fellow countrymen.